What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Borderfield Live, the most important sports show on the internet. And Donovan, baseball?
Yep, baseball's back. 162 game season, thank God. Whatever happened last year, I really wish baseball would wipe that out of the history books. There's still a lot of things that I would change about the rules, a lot of issues, but I'm happy there's a full season and a legit season going on, so can't really complain that much.
And Christopher, baseball?
That sounds about as much as you know about baseball, isn't it, Byron?
Yeah, so I'm not a baseball guy. I might actually surprise. I know how the game works really well.
Uh-huh.
But that just comes because when I was in college, my work study, I worked for the athletic department, and I was the statistician. So if I didn't know how the game works, I wasn't gonna be able to run the computer.
Gotcha.
So I know balls, strikes, outs.
Oh wow.
I
Oh
know
man, that's just some high-tech stuff, Byron. I'm impressed.
I know the name of defensive positionings. I know the
Oh my
numbering. So
gosh.
like I could number the players on the field as well.
Uh-huh.
Um, but past that, and there are technical terms I don't know, like what each hit means. I know foul balls and home runs and hits and walks. So
Got it down to
like
a science, don't worry.
Oh man, Byron, I hate to break to you, you didn't really say anything too impressive there.
But
No,
like
I was just
I know
messing with
like
you.
the name of like three players, and they're all Royals players. Whit Merrifield, Bobby Witt Jr. because everyone was talking about him this spring training, and then I know Salvador Perez.
Yeah, everyone
So
knows Salvi.
so that's about the extent of my baseball knowledge. So my plan for this episode is to eat snacks and kind of let you guys handle it. Because I know nothing about baseball. So baseball.
Yeah. No, like Donovan said, I'm happy it's back. It's been pretty exciting to see all the teams back in April instead of having to wait till end of July like last year. And like you kind of said, Donovan, like last year was kind of a sham. Like I don't take anything. I take all of it with a grain of salt. Like it's
Absolutely.
Christian Yelich hit 211 or whatever he hit last year.
Yep.
Like anyone can hit that in 60 games. And Cody Bellinger sucked. And then you have random guys that did well. Like all of it's just such a small sample size that I'm excited to see like who was legit last year, like who we can take away
Absolutely.
from, and who was a fraud because of the shortened season.
Absolutely. And, there's there are things that happened last year that maybe not have been coincidences. Like, the Dodgers had a very, very good team.
Oh
Like
yeah.
if that was a full season, like they may have very well still won the World Series. There was also would the Braves have made that small run?
Mm-hmm.
Would, other contenders who got in or teams that missed on the outside looking in. So there's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot of topics going on already in terms of the game first couple of weeks. I know there's huge storyline currently going on with how they changed the baseballs from last year to
Mm-hmm.
this year. And I've read a lot about, some players liking it, some players not liking it for obvious reasons. Have you looked into the Trevor Bauer story?
Yeah, I think it's kind of wild that he was the guy that has been so against it his whole career. Like he's been against using foreign substances. He's said it on Twitter, and he was like the first person to release like the typical mix that people do, which is like it's like pine tar melted down with Coca-Cola and rosin and all this stuff, and that's what these pitchers use. He was the one that released it, and then he was finally like, well, if you're not going to do anything for it, I'm going to use it. And the first year he used it, obviously this is all allegedly, but like the first year he
Yeah.
probably used it, he wins the Cy Young, and now he's the poster child for the guy using it, even though Garrett Cole's still rubbing his hat. Shohei Ohtani has it on his hat if you look at it. Like, there's plenty of other big name guys, but just because Bauer was the biggest asshole about it for the last like 4 or 5 years.
There's the thing about Bauer. See, love him or hate him, I actually think his personality is actually, I think, very good for the game.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
He's outspoken. The way he handled free agency this past summer was, I don't know, man. He uses Twitter. He uses Twitter to his advantage more than
Mm-hmm.
most pro athletes I know. And I think he had it down right down to the Dodgers and the Mets, and the way he kind of finagled the Mets like that. You know, it's not popular, but that's kind of the dude he is, and he's probably going to keep coming up, and I don't want to call them scandals, but little storylines like this. But it's kind of what makes it's a long season, 162 games, 6 or 7 months. these little storylines that keep popping up definitely help in terms of the storyline, and makes it more intriguing. Dodgers obviously are a huge market team, so Bauer was already outspoken as he was on the Reds. It's going to be even more so now that the market and the team he's on. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with that, because if he's punished, which we don't know the extent of the punishment he'll get, or if he gets one at all, could affect the Dodgers in some way. Obviously, losing a starter of his caliber, but for now, it's very entertaining having him on that team and having him be, kind of at the center of attention most of the time.
I can't wait for what that shitstorm would look like if he gets suspended. Trevor Bauer suspended for using substance while the Astros still have their players.
Yep.
And he's the biggest poster child for giving them crap too. So it would just be hilarious. So I kind of hope it happens. But the thing about Bauer too, I will get off. I know there's a bunch of other things we need to talk about, but like, if you take out 2018 and last year, which again, he probably started using the substance because he said he may, and it was a short season. Prior to that season in 2018, this dude has never had an ERA below 4, like in his entire, like he's all of a sudden is like this huge, big name guy, and he's really had 1.5 good seasons. He's just such a big personality. So like, I don't know, like if they take the substance away, he goes back to being an average to slightly below average starter. Like, what happens with this personality he's got on Twitter?
You might have to delete his social media.
Exactly.
He won't have any he won't have any say in anything. Another thing I wanted
was Trevor Bauer the one who like signed a contract like the last day of spring training this year? Who was it that signed a contract? It might have been a Mets player, like the last day.
You thinking of Francisco Lindor?
The shortstop, yeah.
That might have been right. Okay, sorry. Proceed.
So, Chris, speaking of the Mets, I wanted to talk about that ending to the Marlins-Mets game yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
That was one of the worst calls I've seen in a long time. And obviously the ump came out and said it after, but so blatant. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I saw a great tweet where it was like the two biggest celebrations of the Mets so far this year have been celebrating the World Series in spring training and a walk-off hit by pitch that was in the strike zone. So Mets not off to a great start. It's not even the first time that something's like that happened. Like Max Scherzer lost a perfect game 4 or 5 years ago on a similar call. Jose Lobaton, I think, was the catcher, leaned in, want two outs in the ninth, leans in, gets hit. Now he still gets the no hitter, but like calls that correctly. That's a perfect game. So the fact that this is like kind of an occurrence every so often is pretty wild. Like, shouldn't you know the strike zone well enough in the rules to where this shouldn't happen at all?
Also that, and I don't know this, the specifics of the rules, but shouldn't baseball have a system where, I know you guys don't follow soccer, but there's a program called VAR, it's video assistant review, where they'll go, look in like they'll look into a camera and there'll be people, in another city, like football, like how they review.
Right.
Is that, should that be something MLB should seriously consider putting in? Because even though that's a simple thing that the ump should be making right away and shouldn't even require it to have the video assistance, but in terms of that should be something that the ump should immediately have to go and look at, and that call should be changed right then and there.
Yeah, I think baseball's in such a like pace of play, like want to speed it up. They're so scared to like do more replays. It really all you can replay is plays at on the base paths. Yeah. And then like if a outfielder trapped it or whatnot, like and that's really all they review. Like everything else is judgment calls up to the umpire. And that's again pace of play / MLB is always the last one that wanted to change. I think we're headed towards automated strike zone. I mean, it's just so hard. Like when you watch the games, and it's worse even now because we all have these strike zones on our screen now, and we can actually blatantly see it.
We get after every pitch.
Right, and obviously those things aren't 100%, but when you see one that's like not even close get called a strike, that's when it's I have issues with. The ones that like maybe touch the black or off the black on the screen and go whatever way. I don't. That's baseball. I don't have an issue with those, but we see all the time like Ryan Lefevre, who's the announcer for the Kansas City Royals, he'll say strike one for or pitch right down the middle for a ball because it happens all the time. Like that's his thing. Like it happens too much. And so the umpires need to either be punished for it some way. I don't know how that works, but they always seem to get off the hook for terrible calls, or they need to speed up this process on the automated strike zone.
Absolutely. And like, it's good that, the umps can, take accountability after the fact, but that's still after the fact. It doesn't change,
Right.
what happened on the field. So obviously, I'm in agreement with you that there needs to be more accountability held on the umpires' part. Another, speaking of a no hitter last night, Padres, unbelievable story. I watched the kid's interview. What's the kid's name?
Joe Musgrove.
Yeah, saw the interview on SportsCenter after the game. That's just a really cool story, and I love how his catcher was supporting him throughout the game, telling them, just slow down, calm down. They're really, I'm a really big fan of the Padres this year. I think they have one of the best staffs and pitching staffs in baseball. I don't know if they're up there with the Dodgers in terms of overall skill set, but I think they can give them a run for their money, especially because they play so often. So, when you play a divisional opponent 15 to 18 times a season, at certain times they may, catch on to what the better team is doing. Specifically how the Rays eliminated the Yankees last year, sort of. I think if you look at the teams going into the, preseason this year, I think most people would agree that the Yankees have a better team from top to bottom than the Rays. Obviously the Rays have a different team this year as well.
Like they always do.
They do. So, many people think Toronto might make that step above Tampa as, as contender to the Yankees. Yankees are off to a slow start. It's still a very long season. There was another injury scare with Aaron Judge. He's back in the lineup again today.
Oh, nice.
We don't know. Aaron Boone is the type of manager who kind of doesn't give you the straight answer to the media, kind of runs around it. Yankees have vastly all of their players injured at some point in the season for the past 3 seasons. You could go with Judge, Stanton, Glaber, Torres, all those guys. Urshela, he's back today as well, though. Kind of makes me to my next point of how valuable DJ LeMahieu is to this team.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He's a rock. He doesn't get hurt. He doesn't really open his mouth about anything, and he's one of the only players on this team who can consistently hit for contact. The Yankees have a bunch of players who can, hit 30 to 40 homers a year if they're healthy. But DJ is that one player that, he kind of holds this team together. What are your thoughts on the AL East and, kind of the competition this year within those teams?
I mean, I think it's the Yankees or bust. I mean, I like the Blue Jays lineup a lot, actually, especially when George Springer comes back and is healthy. Like, that's a scary lineup. But they have one pitcher. They have Ryu and a bunch of scrubs. And so that's not going to get, especially when you're pitching in ballparks like Camden Yards and Yankee Stadium and Fenway, like, that's not going to hold up. Sorry, Blue Jays. Like, you may be one of the top offenses in the league, but you're not going to be, and you may sneak into the wild card. But and I guess if they get into the wild card, they do have Ryu to start that game, but they're not going to get past the division series.
Yeah, you need a more consistent, at least at the most, a number 2 pitcher in a divisional series. So that'll be interesting to see going forward. In terms of staying within that division, what are your thoughts on the Red Sox right now and what obviously the first weekend they got swept by Baltimore, but then they sweep Tampa.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the direction of that team? Do you think they're going to be a little better than people expect, or do you think they're going to be a little worse? What are your thoughts on them?
Again, they're another team that kind of comes down to starting pitching. I mean, their depth isn't great in the lineup. Now, they have 4 or 5 guys, Devers, and JD Martinez seems to be back in. But like, they have a good 1 through 4, 1 through 5. The end of that lineup kind of tails off a little bit. But again, it's going to be I like their starting pitching a little bit more than Toronto. I think Evaldi is a good number 2 when he's right. I think what they brought in. I'm blanking on his name, but he's always hurt. He used to pitch for the Angels and the Padres. He's always hurt, but he's got nasty stuff. If he can stay healthy, he's great. Chris Sale's supposed to be back by maybe July, which is huge. So, like, even after all that, I still don't think they're a playoff team. I think they are a competitive team. I think that, they'll be crapped on because it's Boston and the expectations are so high. But if you're just like a neutral baseball fan, they'll be like,
absolutely.
Red Sox are okay. Like, they're a piece or two away from making a run. Maybe not this year, but they're at least bouncing back from what we've kind of seen ever since they fell off after their 2018 World Series.
Yeah, as you said, in like terms of expectation, there was, obviously this huge outrage the second they traded Mookie Betts, and they went from, this dominant team to, it's kind of in sports and pro sports mainly, you don't see a team be that dominant and then, get rid of a couple players and it's not even that they miss the playoffs, they fall towards the absolute bottom of the league. So obviously that's a drastic change, and obviously, like you said, for a city like Boston, that's obviously not acceptable in terms of a long-term stance.
Right.
They're definitely, I think they're definitely more talented than, like you said, neutral fans might give them credit for, but I also don't think they're there in terms of, the elite in the league, obviously.
Right.
So now the next division, which is clearly your division, you can go off on this. Royals they got off to a decent start over the first weekend. They actually might. I was looking at your predictions that you put in. I mean, I've seen crazier things happen.
Right.
What are your thoughts so far, so early into the season with your team?
Well, if I'm putting money on it, I'm not putting on the Royals to make the playoffs. I know you're talking about where I had them being in the 5 seed against, I think, Toronto in the wild card. But I'd rather be a year early than a year late. And I think this team's close. I think the starting pitching is their biggest downfall. And everyone's saying Royals got off to a hot start. They played the Rangers the first series, and then they took the first game against the Cleveland Indians, who have a bad lineup. Yeah. Then they lost to Shane Bieber and Jose Ramirez the next day for Cleveland, who no shame in that. And then they get Lance Lynn, who was a Cy Young candidate last year, and he went a complete game shutout. So like, it's not like, again, they're 3-3. You don't really know what to expect. My biggest issue with the team right now is actually Andrew Benintendi, because he is off to a terrible start. Like, I don't need you to be a stud. Like, I just need you to give me a good at bat and get on base and let, Whit Merrifield hits in front of him and Carlos Santana and Jorge Soler hit behind him. Like, if you just can get on base every now and then and put together good at bats, that's going to lengthen that lineup. And right now he's hitting like under 200. He doesn't have an extra base hit yet. Like, again, 6 games, he could have 2 good games. He could go 4 for 8 over the next 2 games with a double and a homer, and it's all out the window. But like, I just need to see a little bit more. So that's kind of where I'm at on the Royals.
Yes, and a lot of people were, kind of questioning when the Red Sox and Royals made that move, because Benintendi was struggling big time last year before. I don't know if that's something that will carry over to Kansas City. I don't know if that was a mental or physical problem with him, because his first couple of years in the league, he was a very special player.
Right.
But like you said, it's a very small sample size. With that division, it's kind of very top to bottom loaded, meaning the White Sox are going to be really good, as many people expect. Twins have been dominant in that division over the past couple of seasons, but, many people expect the White Sox to be better. They just lost James Paxton as well to Tommy John surgery.
He's on the Mariners.
Oh, he's on the Mariners.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You good. Eloy Jimenez.
Did the Twins sign a former Yankees pitcher?
J.A. Happ is on them.
Okay. Never mind. Got the names confused. Which
they're both lefties that pitch for the Yankees. Yeah. You're not wrong. So
he's nothing special, J.A. Happ. I don't think the Twins have the pitching to consistently, either go make a deep postseason run or maybe even make it in general. And then there's teams like the Tigers, who everyone knows who are, still in a rebuild mode. Indians are that team that, they've been pretty consistent with making the postseason. And they were only a couple years off from being 1 game away from winning a World Series. Right. They had a series where they were up 2-0 against the Yankees, and the Yankees came back and won. What do you think the Indians' ceiling is for this season?
I think the Royals are better than the Indians.
Yeah.
Like, straight up, like, if you put the roster next side by side, the Cleveland Indians have the best 2 players. No question, like Shane Bieber or Jose Ramirez. The Royals might have 3 through 10. Like, I think it'll be close, obviously, because those 2 guys are superstars. So, like, they, every 5th day, what you're getting. Every time Jose Ramirez comes up, what you're getting. So they may be neck and neck, but I don't think either of them are playoff teams. And I think both of them I could see either one of them winning 80 to 83 games and finishing third in the division, not making the playoffs. I could also see them both winning 70 games and having terrible seasons. So, like, I think they're in very similar situations. It's just the track record, and then the stars of Cleveland gets everyone higher on them than they probably deserve.
Yeah.
But I think this is the White Sox division lose. I'm not high on the Twins either. I think the Twins are definitely going to be the second team, like, and potentially could get into the playoffs. But I'm not high on them this year just because they they'd lost a lot of players, and then all like Nelson Cruz, like, yeah, he's mashing. He could still hit a decline anytime. Josh Donaldson's already getting hurt. Like, the back of their rotation is not anything impressive. They lost Trevor May and some of their bullpen pieces. Like, I don't know if they brought in enough to be able to compete with the White Sox. And what makes the White Sox scary is they're probably going to win the division without Eloy Jimenez, and he's going to come back in September and prime them for a playoff run, a deep postseason run. So I'm really high on the White Sox.
There's just two more divisions I wanted to touch base on, which is the AL West. The Astros are off to a pretty good start, which is, doesn't really make anyone outside of Houston happy.
Well, I love it personally.
It's good for baseball. I mean, they're a villain. They're and like, I'd rather have a villain than, not a lot of storylines. Another team that's really surprising me is Oakland. They are a mess right now. Do you think it's still the Astros division to lose, despite, many people hopping on maybe the Angels?
Yeah, the Astros are just loaded. I mean, when the starting pitching's down, I guess, because every time we talk about it, I feel like I'm a little lower on the starting rotations on a lot of these teams. But they have enough. And the Jake Odorizzi signing was great. They have Zach Greinke, and then that offense is just, when it's clicking, they have like 3 MVP candidates in it. And then Michael Brantley isn't even one of them, and he may be the best overall hitter in that team. Yep. It's the Astros to lose. The Athletics, I didn't think they were going to be off to this bad a start, but again, they are playing the Astros for their second series, so that could be part of it. But they just, I don't know, they're another team that where you look at the roster, you see a lot of guys that could go either way, and if they go the wrong way, you get this. And I think that's where the Athletics are right now. I'm really excited about the Angels, man. Like, I hope they make they are the most fun team.
I want it so bad. I mean, obviously, for the type of player Mike Trout is, I mean, it really is a shame that he's not, it would be stupid to call him underrated, but it's like the team he's on and just, the lack of success they had, people like really do not, if people got to see this guy in October on a consistent basis, I think the message would finally get across of how, generational of a talent this guy really is. And that's another thing for baseball in general I'm cheering for. Like, you got to be able to utilize your best player. And by him missing the postseason year after year, that doesn't help anything. So obviously with Ohtani and, other pieces on that team, I think they're a team that's pretty easy to cheer for. I would like to see them get in the playoffs, if not a division winner, then a wild card spot, because I think Mike Trout is, I mean, I'm only 23 years old, but Mike Trout might be the best player I see in my lifetime.
Right.
So, I think they're a team that, like you said, they could get in, they can make noise. And then the last division I wanted to talk about was the NL Central. So many people expected the Pirates to be a dumpster fire coming into this year. They may or may not be, but who I think this may be maybe a more open division than people expected. Who would you put your money on winning this division as of right now?
Man, I think this is the hardest division. I thought it's going to be a 4-team race for the entire year. Like, I can see all 4 of the teams outside of the Pirates making a run at. I was a little bit lower on the Reds, but they're already proven they're the only team with 1 loss. Like, everyone else has 2 or more losses this year. Like, they're off to a hot start. I thought losing Bauer was going to be a bigger deal than it was, but if their offense in that small bandbox of a ballpark keeps hitting like this, they're going to be in contention. I think I'm still leaning on the Cardinals just because I think they're the most complete team. Absolutely. they have the best corner. I mean, sorry, Rizzo and Bryant, you guys are great and all, but Goldschmidt and Arenado is ridiculous in the corners. They have an ace and Jack Flaherty. They have some decent depth behind them with Wainwright and Nicolas and Martinez in that rotation. They have some decent bullpen arms. Like they have a little bit of everything to where even though their outfield, I don't feel super good about, even though the rookie Dylan Carlson, who's was a top prospect, got to play last year, didn't do too good. Well, he's off to a fantastic start. He can live up to his top prospect. That makes, it takes out one of your three issues in the outfield. And again, I'm probably leaning on them, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Brewers get hot, if the Reds continue hit, like if the Cubs.
Yeah.
What's odd enough is the Cubs is the team I'm the lowest on just because they haven't hit for almost 2 years now. So like
exactly, they rely a lot on, obviously Darvish, but they rely a lot on their starters at times, and you see them throughout the year get into 3-2, 4-3 final games.
Right.
Yeah, so that's all I wanted to cover. Basically, there's still, we still have an extremely small sample size of a season, so we're trying our best to cover of what we've seen so far. Is there anything else that you want to that's stuck out to you so far, surprised you? Anything about that so far?
I did want to talk a little bit more about the no-hitter just because it is really cool that Padres were the last franchise without a no-hitter. Joe Musgrove, who's been pretty much the definition of an average pitcher his whole career. Even he got traded from Houston to Pittsburgh in the Garrett Cole deal a few years ago. Was average in Pittsburgh, gets traded. The Padres bring in Blake Snell. They bring in Yu Darvish. They have Dinelson Lamet, who was a stud last year. Joe Musgrove was kind of like the last, the fourth or fifth starter, like not that big of a deal, not too exciting. And he's the one that throws the San Diego boy throws the no-hit. I just think that's really cool and kind of a sign for what's happened in San Diego.
Yeah, you can't make that up. I mean, it's just a great storyline. No, like we said, San Diego's definitely a team to watch because they're going to be dangerous. Byron, anything you want to add?
Well, since the conversation is dying down, I do know we have a disagreement here, and I didn't know if we'd ever come there naturally. So all I'm going to mention is, hey, Donovan, how do you feel about the runner on second base during extra innings?
I think it's trash, but listen, if my team wins from it, like I'm not gonna complain. And if that's the reason they lose a game, it's gonna complain. It's natural with fans. I don't like it at all, but I mean, baseball's trying their best, like you said, to speed the game up. We can't knock them for not having any changes, and then when they do make changes, knock them then. So, it kind of bothered me more last year just because of how short the season was and all that. But maybe give it another year or two, and it might be something I can get used to. But for, watching baseball my whole life, it's still pretty strange to me right now, and it kind of feels like a wiffle ball game.
So do you not like it because it's different, or like what is the actual, or what is it?
Yeah, it is different. So that's not the specific reason I like it. I just think it's weird that like obviously overtime rules change throughout all the sports. Like in hockey, it used to be 5-on-5, and they changed it to 3-on-3. It gives, but it is fair. Both teams have it. It's not.
Right.
I didn't like it as much last year, but it's sort of growing on me. It's something I'm getting used to. So I have a less of a problem with it than I did a year ago.
Gotcha.
It's obviously in the heat of the moment sometimes. Like if your team blows a 9th inning lead, and then they lose in the 10th inning off the first pitch of the 10th inning because a guy's on second, it's obviously going to be aggravating, but there's also, instances where your team will benefit from that. So, it's about perspective, and it's more kind of in the moment thing, but, you kind of still have to applaud the MLB for kind of trying to make the change and make the game more intriguing. So it's not something that I'm completely against. It's just something more that I have to get used to.
I absolutely love the rule. I should never touch postseason baseball, never. But for 162 game season, I absolutely love it because again, it adds strategy to the extra innings. Like home away team have to figure out like they're going to bunt this guy and play for one. They're going to play for two.
Yeah,
it speeds the game up. Which again, everyone loves free baseball. They're like, oh man, free baseball is so cool. free baseball is terrible because it's guys that are tired, back into bullpens, trying to hit a home run and end it. It's absolutely terrible. Like those games that drag on forever. This takes that out of it and makes it more consistently exciting. And like it just, again, the biggest thing is, especially in a year after COVID, where you're already worried about pitchers' arms and everything, it saves, those 18 inning games where you use every guy and throw out their arms. You go 10, 11, maybe 12 innings.
Yeah.
And it gets it over with. I mean, I don't think it should ever touch postseason because it does give too much of an advantage to a home team. But I do like the home team having an advantage, like especially during the regular season. That's fun.
Yep. No, I agree. It's more. I think it's doing a lot more for the game than people want to give it credit for. But
right.
I think it's something I can get used to, and it makes the games exciting. It puts teams more on their toes.
Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely a good last point.
Yeah, which is what you want for new fans. Like anything that's changed for current fans is always going to be a tough adjustment period because it's new, and that's just human nature. Like 7-inning doubleheaders, and when the automated strike zone comes in, like all that stuff that's going to be new is going to be weird. Yep. But if it makes the game better / more interesting to outsiders,
absolutely,
that's what's important.
Yep, that's all you can ask for at that point. Yep, that's all from me.
Yeah, all right, I know I contributed greatly to this conversation, but I feel like we had a great episode. I assume y'all seem to know what you're talking about, so it sounded good. I'll tell you, it sounded good. I have no clue about any of these players, but it sounded great.
Trevor Richards, that was the pitcher I was talking about for the Red Sox. I couldn't remember. There you go. That was my who I was blanking.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Oh yeah, I know. It was right on the tip of your tongue.
But that concludes today's episode. We will be back next week. We've kind of milled about either next week or the week after potentially doing a mock draft episode. So stick around for that. Make sure to subscribe while you're here on our YouTube channel. We do a morning show Mondays and Thursdays. I do a morning show Mondays and Thursdays at 9 a.m. Central. So check that out. Also go check out Ballin' with Beers. He's having a great time with the Masters right now. It's WrestleMania weekend. Go watch WrestleMania. UFC Fight Night's on right now as we're recording, actually. So don't go watch that. It's not on anymore when this is up. But go watch some baseball. Go have a great day. Christopher, tell people where they can find you.
As always, you can find me on Twitter at 10penny88. I will warn you, my baseball content is probably 80% Royals, but the other 20%, I do still check in on the rest of the league and give my opinions that no one currently really cares about. But if you're interested in it and follow me and you're not a Royals fan, that may change the content a little bit.
Yep, my Twitter is DonnyCaz97. Also, great sports day today. Sports all over the place. I'm very excited for that mock draft episode, Byron. NFL draft is right around the corner. It's kind of sneaking up on us, so definitely a lot to cover in the next couple of weeks. Looking forward to it.
I will say I have notoriously not been a draft guy. Notoriously, this is my time of year where I'm off. Typically, like I just sports in general. I'll watch basketball, but this is normally the time of year where I don't really do much. Mm-hmm. This year, I have made myself be a mock draft guy, more or less, because I spend a lot of time with Keaton now, and he's a draft guy. So I've gotten to know a lot of those players. I know a lot more about those players now than I think I would ever know otherwise. So yeah, I am looking forward to the mock draft this year. If you want to find my content, it's at Byron Smith on Twitter. But of course, most of what I talk about, you're going to find at borderfieldsports.com. Ton of good stuff going on. Our site is going in a great direction right now, breaking records every day. So we're hoping you stop by and you come check out what we're writing. But until next week, we will see you later.